Well now, the Christchurch Film and Television Training School. Some students have deep concerns about the way the school is run. Students pay big money for the course. It's a 40-week course, so a year's course, $10,000. This is a private training establishment. The issues in this are twofold. First, is the school failing to deliver what it promises before you pay your $10,000? And secondly, if you pay $10,000 for a course and you feel strongly the course is no good, that you're not being served, who looks after you? Quite simply, 5 students of a class of 15, that's a third of them, believe the Christchurch School Film and Television Training School is failing to deliver. The trouble started back in September. A group of students complained about the course, saying things were disorganised, unprofessional, work wasn't being marked, tutors weren't turning up. When they did turn up, some of them didn't really know what they're supposed to be doing. According to them, the director refused to discuss their concerns, yelled at them, threatened to call the police, threatened them with defamation proceedings. Well, since November, 4 of the students who complained have been expelled. The school says the 40-week course is well respected. When students graduate, they're well equipped for a career in the film industry, and the students who've been expelled got what they deserved. Well, shortly we'll speak to the course director, Marilyn Hudson. But first, the trouble at the school. Vicky Wilkinson-Baker in Christchurch.
And action.
Making movies, it's what these 4 students have dreamt about, but it's all gone very wrong for them.
I just don't want to see anybody else's dreams destroyed by this course.
Destroyed because Shane and 3 others are off the course, expelled for a variety of reasons. These students say their problems began several months back when they complained about the course being disorganised.
3 weeks, 4 weeks into the course where we're just doing a lot of lecturing and no hands-on, which was understandable, but we were still curious on when are we going to get to touch the video camera.
I'd expect to be challenged on a course like this, you know. You'd want to come along and be given assignments that push your limits.
Shane Filer made the initial complaint a letter in writing. Signed by 6 students, it was not well received.
Her reaction was to call students in and threaten that she would sue them for libel if they didn't retract from what they'd said.
They say their concerns were not addressed, so they went higher to the Qualifications Authority, which ensures courses like this one are up to scratch. Their complaint said the course has no structure. It doesn't follow the outline in the advertising material. There's a general slackness in training, few hands-on projects. Tutors are often late and unprepared or don't turn up at all. Inadequate staff, inadequate maintenance of equipment. There's little or no feedback, and they accuse the course director of bullying students. The situation then got worse. The students ended up getting expelled by course director Marilyn Hudson. They believe her action was unjustified.
I think it was because I complained to the NZQA, but it was also partly because I was away last week working in the industry on work experience and didn't notify her in time.
That, he admits, was a mistake, but not one that should cost him $10,000. The day he was expelled, he recorded his conversation with Marilyn Hudson. He didn't tell Marilyn Hudson he was doing that.
I'd like my $10,000 back, though.
Good luck.
I'd very much appreciate my tuition fee back.
I've had enough of you now. I'm going to go into the classroom, so would you like to leave?
Can we address the issue of my tuition fees?
Would you like to leave now? If you wanted to have any communication with me, do it through a solicitor, all right?
I think I will. All right. Thank you very much, Marilyn. You've been totally unhelpful.
You were baiting her.
Well, bear in mind that I called her darling and was perhaps quite rude to her after I'd been told I'm off the course and after I've asked for an explanation and not been given one.
Shane Filer is also accused of libelling the school and being rude to the director. She would say that you were rude and abusive. Is that right?
No, it's definitely not. That's my one disappointment, is that I actually didn't get to say what I really thought.
The school started 13 years ago and has a good reputation. Most of the students find jobs. Publicity hasn't always been positive. 4 years ago, Fair Go paid a visit. A student unhappy about the course left and couldn't get a refund.
Back that money.
Wasting your film, fellas.
However, the school has strong support from many people in the film industry and from other students.
At the start, I had some doubts. I wasn't quite sure where the course was heading.
What sort of doubts?
Just things like the amount of work we were being given seemed lower than what I expected, and we were given a freer range than, say, high school, which had come out of. So it took a little time to get used to those kind of things.
Plenty of hands-on experience. I mean, have you found it good from that point of view?
Yeah, I have actually. It's been a good balance of giving you the knowledge theoretical wise, and also with practical work, like actually going out and shooting your own projects.
10,000 well spent?
Hopefully. I mean, it seems as much.
It's a good course overall. It's like you really get your money's worth.
But the others say they waited long enough.
If we'd have waited and complained later, people would have said, well, why didn't you tell us earlier?
3 of those who signed the original letter have now been expelled.
Yeah, it's just too much of a coincidence that most of the students who have complained have all been expelled for varying reasons.
Then today, a message from the Qualifications Authority. It said, although there have been a number of concerns over the years, the authority has found the actual quality of learning at the school has been more than sufficient. The authority says there have been student complaints, but until recently students have not pursued those complaints. A visit to the school in July indicated a high level of student satisfaction. And while its investigation of these latest complaints isn't completed, the authority says it's likely that the school will be required to revise policies and procedures in some areas. And this from the Ministry of Education. Tertiary providers will need to demonstrate that they're solvent and likely to remain so. The New Zealand Film and Television School has not met the Ministry's criteria. The Ministry has therefore withdrawn approval for this establishment for access to loans and allowances. Despite their problems, they say the film industry still beckons. Investigations into whether they've been treated fairly will continue. But the big question is, are they entitled to their money back? So far, it's been a very expensive lesson.
I'd really rather not go back because I don't feel I was getting my money's worth, but I'd like to see $10,000 appear in my bank account overnight and pay off my student loan and get on with it.
So will they get the money back? Marilyn Hudson is the course director, and she's live with us in Christchurch in a few minutes. Now, the Christchurch Film and Television Training School, more on this. The students say, they've said to us that when they tried to follow the school's complaints procedure, they were shouted at and threatened by Marilyn Hudson. At one stage, she threatened to call the police. Right now, the Qualifications Authority, the NZQA, is looking at the place, and the Ministry, as Vicky pointed out, the Ministry has withdrawn, this is the Ministry of Education, has withdrawn approval for tertiary fees to be paid to the school by the government. Well, with us in Christchurch is the director of the Christchurch Film and Television School, Marilyn Hudson. Good evening.
Good evening, Paul.
Are you solvent?
I don't know that that's something I can comment on because it's probably something you should talk to our accountants about.
Well, what's your feeling about whether you're solvent or not?
I'm sorry, Paul, that's not really something I can comment on.
No, it's a serious matter, isn't it, Marilyn, because the Ministry says it's withdrawn approval for you to have access to loans and allowances for students because they've got a responsibility not to pour money down the drain. So, really, it's a fair question to ask, is the school broke?
Yeah. Paul, the Ministry of Education have an obligation under the new legislation introduced by the National Government and reviewed in the Tertiary White Paper recently released to actually relook at all the institutions in New Zealand without exception.
That's right, and in your case, from November 30, I'm sorry to interrupt, Marilyn.
We as an institution, just along with everybody else, have had to submit, we have not been in receipt of government funding for the last 2 years, but we did wish to be included in the tenders for the 1999 year. So along with every other institution in the country, we've submitted our particular submission to the Ministry, and there's very strict criteria upon which you must be accounted.
Yes, that's right. With the greatest of respect, what they've said is from November 30, Marilyn, no payment of loans and allowances to your institution for students. So they're worried that you are not solvent.
Yes, no, Paul, the two things do not relate. They're not, the Ministry decision is not actually anything to do with the solvency or otherwise of the school. What it is to do with is that the Ministry, quite rightly, has certain criteria which they have to meet for the giving of public finance to any institution. Now, under that criteria, along with a lot of other institutions,
you are director of this particular institution in Christchurch. What I'm asking is, if students pay $10,000 to you, is it down the toilet? Yes or no? Can you give a guarantee?
No, it's not down the toilet.
So you are not insolvent?
We have adequate insurance protection actually in place for students, which is something we're very pleased about. And I think a lot of other institutions in the country are also very pleased that this insurance is now available.
All right, on to some of the problems the students have alleged. They say they've been unable to discuss the course with you, that you shout at them, that you threaten them with the police, with defamation. Do you deny all of that?
Well, Paul, this school's been going for 13 years, and in that time we've trained approximately 300 students, and 67% of those have gone into the industry. Indeed, some of them are producing programs that are appearing on your station right now. And we, from time to time, as all institutions have, we have problems with students that can't actually comply with the very mild regulations that we have, which are in the form of a student conditions and procedures document, which they sign at the beginning of the course. Now, it's a last resort for us, and not one that we take lightly, and it's very upsetting for all concerned when we have to take the step of actually asking a student to forfeit their place.
Marilyn, all these people did was try and get you. They wrote you a letter saying they had very serious reservations about the way the course was going. Tutors were not turning up. They weren't getting any...
Paul, with respect, we did not have a letter that was addressed to the director of the school. What we had was an anonymous piece of paper that was left on my desk. The signatures were ineligible, actually. We had to actually get out the personal files.
It wasn't anonymous, Marilyn. There were signatures on it. I've seen... Marilyn, I'm sorry. Marilyn, I've seen the letter.
I didn't say anonymous, sorry. I said illegible.
No, you said it was anonymous, Marilyn.
No, sorry. Well, it was anonymous in that it wasn't addressed to me, and it wasn't signed by people's names. You know, it didn't have any names at the bottom of it. It had a number of signatures, which we actually had to get the personal files of the students out to have a look and decipher whose signatures were actually on the document.
No, but it got to the point. You wouldn't discuss it with them, and it got... I'm sorry.
Under advice from a tutor who was arriving from Auckland, we decided at that time that because the document was so inflammatory, that I didn't want to, and bearing in mind it was signed by 5 students out of 27 students who are currently at the school.
5 out of 15, wasn't it? 5 out of 15 in that particular intake. 5 out of 15 in that intake. That's a third of them expressing dissatisfaction.
That's right, actually, very small class. And we felt that, you know, in fairness to the other students who hadn't signed it, even though they'd been coerced by Mr. Filer to sign the document, we felt that it was better to let the directing module, which they were about to go into with David Blythe from Auckland, to go ahead, and that a research break was coming up, and that would be an opportunity for me to actually
why did it have to get to the point where you had to kick them out? Why couldn't you simply have discussed the problems with them? They had very serious concerns.
Would you like me to give you the reasons why they've been asked to forfeit their places?
Oh, well, not if you're going to tell me about theft, because I'm afraid, he signed the gear out. But anyway.
Yes, no, I'm sorry, Paul, that's not actually the case. It is a shame that we haven't been given the opportunity for a proper investigation to happen into these allegations.
You were given every... Don't you start that with me, Marilyn. You were given every opportunity, please, to come on this program.
Paul, this program has been in research for over a week, and I was contacted yesterday. The promos for the program had already been prepared and went to air last night. I have a school to run. I have students who are graduating on Friday, and it was very difficult for me to respond in the short time that I was given.
All right.
However,
can I say this? We had a person...
I'm happy to talk to you.
We had a person, I'm happy to talk to you too, but we had a person phoned us about an hour ago. They didn't even know we were going to be doing this program. They said, my God, I can't believe you're doing this Christchurch Film and Television Training School. In 1989, he was one of your students. 12 of them got together and went to you to ask where the money was going because they didn't feel it was being spent on the course. This is 9 years ago. You expelled them, Marilyn. Then you took 11 of them back. These were 11 whose fees were paid for by the government, but the fellow you didn't allow back had paid up front. He was a private payer, and he never did get his money back. Expulsion has been, and intimidation seem to have been, a device you use for even the mildest unrest.
No, unfortunately, Paul, that information isn't correct, and it's just a pity, as I say, that there wasn't adequate time given to the school to address these things. What I would like to do is take the opportunity to congratulate all the students who have made such a wonderful success of their careers in the film and television industry.
All right, let me put this to you.
making the industry very proud of them, and we feel that we're a small part of that. And we've had a number of students just recently, amongst them Gillian Ashurst, who's had her short film accepted into the Sundance Film Festival, Ellery LKM, who's won the Telluride Film Festival prize.
Did you expel 12 of them back in 1989, yes or no?
Absolutely not.
So this person is a complete liar. This person is known to the program, actually.
Yes, OK.
This person is known to the program and still apparently talks about the horrendous year.
I'd be very happy for you to come back to me on that one if you indeed can prove that, because that's actually not true. In the 13 years that we've been going, we haven't had to ask a lot of people to forfeit their place, but bearing in mind that we have an obligation to the industry pool, of which I've been part of for a number of years.
And so do we, Marilyn, which is why I'm asking you. The New Zealand Qualifications Authority say there have been complaints from students over the years, and none of them ever wants to go into writing. Why is that?
Indeed, Paul, if you knew about education and training, which I've been experienced in this for the last 13 years, you would find that, especially in private institutions, there is a huge responsibility on us to perform in the same way.
That's right. Will they get their money back?
As a publicly funded tertiary institution, and that puts huge pressure on, the shareholders of companies, the directors of these institutions, to actually meet the expectations of the education system in this country.
And they felt their expectations
and of course,
met.
there's been a great sacrifice made by the shareholders, the directors of the company. There's been a lot of input from many, many senior people in the industry, and we've had a phenomenal success.
Good. Thank you very much indeed for your time, Madam. We've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Students who aren't happy with courses they've paid for are protected by the Fair Trading Act and the Consumer Guarantees Act. If they want to take the action, they can go to the Disputes Tribunal or take a legal action through the District Court. Good evening. Well, last night we featured the deep dissatisfaction amongst a class of 15 at the Film and Television School in Christchurch. The course costs $10,000, 40-week course, $10,000. The students were emphatic to us that they were not getting their money's worth. And then we had the unusual encounter with the director of the school, Marilyn Hudson. Now, when the 4 students had tried to complain to Miss Hudson, she threatened them with defamation, she threatened them to the police, that's to say she threatened to go to the police, and that they would never get a job in the industry. Immediately after the program last night, this is during and immediately after the program last night, the faxes and the telephone calls in support of the students flooded in. For example, a fax from Case Grunendale. He says, our son was on this course 3 years ago, and he went through the same thing. Case says, the boys concerned were afraid that Hudson would influence their future prospects and therefore decided to keep quiet. Sarah Wiseman from Auckland faxed us. She said she couldn't come on live. We approached her today to come on the program, said she couldn't. But here's what Sarah said to us today of her experience at the school.
I attended the course in 1993. I left the course on my 15th week, and according to my contract, I'm still eligible for a refund of over $5,200, being the second term's fees. Marilyn has not offered to refund that to me, and I'm still waiting.
Sarah Wiseman still waiting. Now, Pat O'Sullivan of Christchurch says, my son went to the school last year and experienced the exact same problems. She expels students without reasonable cause. She expelled, this is Marilyn Hudson, she expelled my son 3 days before the end of the course, locked him out of the classroom, and threatened to withhold his certificate of attainment. The younger students, says Pat, are too frightened to say anything in case of repercussions and, wait for it, what she could do within the industry to harm their future job prospects. With us in Christchurch, live, sitting in our studio in Christchurch, is another former student, Paul Blackman, who started the course back in 1996. Paul, you were dissatisfied with the quality of the course. You complained. What was Marilyn Hudson's reaction when you went to her?
She gave me a lot of verbal abuse and threatened to expel me from the course, and I wasn't given any opportunity to speak. So then I put a formal complaint in writing to the Qualifications Authority, and I also gave her a letter in writing, and the very strong implication was if I made any further complaints, I'd be kicked off the course.
When you complained to the New Zealand Qualifications Authority, what response did you get from, I think, one Barry Dew? Was that his name?
Barry Dorr.
Barry Dorr, pardon me.
That's right. Well, basically, he told me that they were going to have a very formal review of the whole school, that the students would get the opportunity to voice their concerns, and that there would be something done about the course. And in my experience, nothing changed. The thing stayed the same. In fact, if anything, it got worse. There was a flurry of activity at the beginning when they knew the Qualifications Authority were coming, And then when it was over, everything returned to normal. And normal meaning we were wasting a lot of time.
Did the Qualifications Authority indicate to you they were sick of your harassment of them?
Yes, they did. They told me to stop calling them, that they couldn't do anything further.
Paul Blackman, I thank you very much. Fax, again, and let me tell you, so the quality of the faxes, so many intelligent and rational faxes have come in since last night. A fax, for example, again, from Sue Wolfenden, who used to be the head supervisor at the school. She says, after I'd been forced by Marilyn Hudson to resign, students would phone me at home, some of them in tears at the way Hudson had isolated them and threatened them with expulsion. As a class, they too wrote a letter to Marilyn Hudson asking for clarification about issues, and the student who presented the letter was suspended, says Sue. Chris Hinchy is on this year's course, which started in July, but he's run into enormous problems. His parents have both become involved, and his mum, Gabrielle, is with Chris there in Christchurch. Your experience?
Good evening, Paul. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking. Our concern started after Chris had done only 13 weeks of the 40-week course. Through no fault of his own, he became ill. And we've had serious problems dealing with Marilyn over his illness. We've asked for a refund of his fees because he will not be able to attend for some months. She's been intimidating. She threatened my husband with the police when he went down to the school to take a medical certificate.
Did your husband shout at her? Was he rational? Was he...
No. My husband spoke to her calmly and quietly, and he was ordered off the premises. She said he was trespassing and threatened to get the police to have him removed. And he was unable to present her with a medical certificate that he'd bought.
Right, so how... he started the course in July...
Yes.
And then got very sick shortly afterwards, didn't he?
Yes, he has quite a serious illness. Marilyn originally was quite sympathetic. She phoned me at home and said that she was concerned at Christopher's absences. I explained that he was having blood tests done, and she asked me to phone her back when we had a diagnosis of the illness. She actually offered for Christopher to be able to complete the course any time in the next 18 months. When I phoned her back the following week with the results of Christopher's investigations and a diagnosis, she didn't want to know anything about it. She was most unsympathetic. I thought I was speaking to a different person. She was quite threatening on the phone to me and said she no longer wished to discuss the matter with me. When I said to her that I felt it was appropriate for Christopher to receive his fees back, she said the only thing that she could do was offer him a place on the course next year in Wellington. If he didn't go to Wellington, he would have to forfeit the course and the fees, and there was no other avenue that we could pursue.
Good, Gabriella, thank you very much indeed for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
So the complaints have been real for a long time, and the question now becomes, doesn't it, why does the New Zealand Qualifications Authority appear to have done so little about widespread, long-standing concerns and the way those who have paid so much appear to be treated? I'm going to be talking very shortly, when we come back in a few minutes, to Bill Lennox, who is the spokesman for the New Zealand Qualifications Authority, which approves the course, which registers the school. Bill Lennox is in Wellington in a few minutes. So again, let me repeat, since the programme last night, so many intelligent and rational faxes from people with an unsatisfactory experience of the New Zealand Film and Television School in Christchurch, and with the director, Marilyn Hudson. Now, the school is registered by, and the course is approved by, the New Zealand Qualifications Authority. Bill Lennox is a spokesperson for the authority. Good evening.
Good evening. Does
what you've heard tonight concern you?
Yes, it does concern us. It concerns me especially that Paul felt that he was told to go away by NZQA. I hope that the message he was getting was that there are certain things that NZQA can do, there's certain powers that we have under the legislation, and we had taken those. In Paul's case, we looked into the complaint. We required the school to make certain changes to their procedures, and that was agreed by the beginning of this year. We visited the school in the middle of this year, and it seemed at that stage, according to some students, such as some of the ones you interviewed last night, that those procedures that they had promised to put in place had been put into place. We weren't aware that the same problems were arising until we received the latest complaint in October.
Well, that's right. You know, can I say, there seems to be a huge disparity between what I've read of people and the experiences they've had on the course and the kind of action the Qualifications Authority's taken. Your investigations seem to be half-hearted. You don't get anywhere.
Yeah. Well, our investigations are full-hearted. We're
then why haven't
required...
you found out stuff like we've been revealing over the last couple of nights?
Yeah. Well, we have discovered it. We discovered it when we visited a few weeks ago. The school will be getting a report from us in the next few days, which will require them almost instantly before they open next term to make certain changes, such as requiring third-party involvement in discussions and complaints between the director and students. We take those actions. We have limited powers. We're required to check that they've got the capacity to deliver what they say they're going to deliver. There is a balance to this in terms of the market situation. These students have a contract with the school. The school has a contract with the students.
That's right. You pay your 10 grand up front, Bill. You pay your 10 grand up front. I mean, how do you know what you're going to be getting? You're going there because you want to learn about the film and television industry. When you pay your 10 grand up front, you don't know what you're going to get, do you? If people can't rely on you people, what hope is there?
What they can rely on from us is that we and the Ministry of Education, in terms of funding, have checked out that the school has got the capacity to deliver, and they have got a history of delivering it.
Well, the Ministry of Education actually has withdrawn approval for fees and loans to be paid to that school. Doesn't that concern the Qualifications Authority?
It certainly does. They've looked into the financial situation of the school, I guess, more recently than we have. It's very important to emphasise that there are other remedies these students have as consumers. They are consumers, they've purchased a service, they're not getting satisfaction. NZQA is taking action, they should be taking action as well under the consumer protection.
Well, I'm sorry, but they don't, you see, they're poor students who have probably borrowed the $10,000. Several have told us in their testimony, you know, several have said to us, it's hopeless, the fair trading and the consumers and so forth. People are frightened of Marilyn Hudson, too frightened to do anything anyway. They can't afford the process. They've gone to that school because you people authorise it, because you people for a decade have registered and approved the course. And so many are writing in now saying the course is a nonsense. The woman is a tyrant. The woman threatens to go to the cops. The woman threatens us with defamation if we try and complain. And you've let this go on for years.
I don't think we have let it go on. We are requiring them to put in place certain procedures. The nature of the school has changed recently, and we've been keeping a much closer check on them recently than we have before. We've offered to help mediate in this particular case, which is actually going beyond what we're required to do. We're giving them very firm directions about what they should do soon. We have to emphasise that in the last 2 years there have been 2 complaints. Paul indicated to us after we had made a visit last year that he was going to get on with the course, and indicated that he wasn't taking the complaint much further.
Why do you think that might have been?
Very good question.
Well, shall I give you what I think might be the answer?
I think I know the answer too.
What do you think it would be?
I think that probably he was concerned that he wanted to complete the course satisfactorily. We're uncomfortable with that.
Because he wouldn't have got his money back if he'd tried, probably.
Yeah, we're uncomfortable with that. He has no recourse through us. We don't have any legislative powers to do something about that. We do have something to do with the procedures they have and whether they continue to operate. The students who are there have the powers to take action through disputes tribunals.
I'm sorry, you've got the power to deregister that course and to withdraw approval of that course and the school.
We certainly have, and we take that action when we really need to. Our main aim is to make sure that the school is improving its procedures, because if we pull the plug on them, then the students who are currently there simply lose what they've got.
Does the authority, after what we've seen tonight and last night, does the authority have concerns about the director of that school? And again, these people are paying customers of the director, and they're treated, it seems, in some cases, as if they're a lower form of life.
Yeah, we're entitled, I suppose, and we do have concerns about the way the students are treated, the sort of complaints procedures they've got, the sort of staffing that is provided, and the sort of directions they'll be getting soon will indicate that they need to improve that.
Well, hang on, Bill. Yes, Paul Blackman, you want to come in, I think.
I didn't find any of what NZQA did to help me at all satisfactory. Basically, it was a whitewash, and when I asked them what specifically was going to be done, I really didn't get any satisfactory answers. For one thing, students weren't even allowed to put in evaluation forms. That was a simple thing that they could have done easily. And in the time that I was there, nothing concrete changed. And I think what they did was totally ineffectual. And at the end of the day...
Can I ask you, Paul, the Qualification Authority said to us yesterday, one of the difficulties they've had with investigating the school over the years is that so few students were prepared to go into writing. If that was so, why do you think that might have been?
Because Marilyn Hudson would threaten to kick them out if they did. And the word I got was, don't say anything because she'll kick you out. And I made NZQA aware of that, and I said that none of the other students probably won't say anything because they're intimidated by her.
And that's what you've got to deal with, don't you, Bill?
It is indeed, and within the extent of the powers that we have, we're placing requirements on her to improve those sorts of procedures. We are not responsible for the day-to-day running of that school or any college.
No, but somebody, damn it, somebody's got to protect these kids paying their $10,000.
Paul, can I come in here with something? Paul, I'm very concerned at the intimidating way that Marilyn Hudson treats these young people. We have had a letter from her since Christopher's illness, and she has actually asked Christopher to apologise to her for his behaviour. I can't understand this response to a serious illness. What is Christopher being asked to apologise for?
Well, look, I'm going to have to leave it there. Very good point, Gabrielle. Thank you very much, Christopher. All the very best. Bill Lennox, I guess the Qualifications Authority will be busy, and you are going to require her, do I understand it from earlier in the interview, that there be a third party now when complaints are made to her by students who have paid the $10,000.
That's right.
So there will be dialogue with paying customers.
Indeed.
I thank you for your time. Now, having said all of the above, less than an hour ago, we got a fax from 10 graduates from the Film and Television School in Christchurch. They say, "We are disgusted," and it's signed to 10 signatures. Here it is. Excuse me. They say, "We're disgusted by the position your program has placed us all in, especially considering how our futures are so vulnerable at the present time. The school has done everything in its power to make this an enjoyable and successful year for us all. Work experience has been provided. If this is a tardy administration, then all schools should strive for the same level of tardiness." And another thing too, before we move away from this, I should also clarify this very clearly. There are two in that, of course, it will be clearly, if one clarifies anything, Rachel will be the first to pick up on the tautology. I should clarify this. There are two television schools in Christchurch. The one we've been talking about is the Film and Television School. That's the New Zealand Film and Television School. There's also a New Zealand Broadcasting School at Christchurch Polytech, which is completely unrelated, and we've had absolutely no complaints about the one at the Christchurch Polytech. I should also tell you too, on the board of consultants boasted by the New Zealand Film and Television School are people like Ellen Bollinger and Michael Horton himself. They might be concerned at what's going on at the school, at which apparently they are part of the board of consultants. They will do a deal. Last year, we brought you a story about the New Zealand Film and Television School in Christchurch. There's a story about 4 students. They claimed they were kicked out after complaining about the course. They're now taking their case to a disputes tribunal. It's going to be heard next week, but the problems have not gone away. The school's been forced to close in Christchurch. A number of reasons involved here. Unpaid rent is one of them. Another reason, the school no longer has accreditation with the New Zealand Qualifications Authority, and because of the concerns about the school's viability, the Ministry of Education has now ruled no more students' loans or allowances for people going to the school. According to the school's director, Marilyn Hudson, it was a difficult time, but now students left on the course say they're having a difficult time as well. They want some answers. They want the refunds they've been promised. Vicky Wilkinson-Baker in Christchurch.
She always labelled me as, "You are one of them too," meaning that I was one of the troublemakers. And action.
The so-called troublemakers are the students who spoke to Holmes last year, claiming they'd been unfairly expelled after criticising the course.
I just don't want to see anybody else's dreams destroyed by this course.
Late last year, the school's financial problems became public, with students locked out after a dispute over unpaid rent. Early this year, more trouble. The locks were changed. The owners of the building say they were owed 5 months' rent. They wanted the Film and Television School out. It left 10 students halfway through a 40-week course.
Yeah, there was a lot of enthusiasm when all the students started. You know, they were just about skipping to school and keen to get there after about 7 weeks. People were reluctant, you know, to go to the school because of the way things were run.
Then the school made the students an offer.
To continue the course in Wellington commencing the 16th of May, or to withdraw from the course and accept a refund of half the total course fee.
5 students opted to stay on the course. The rest, like Ian Gall, want their money. $5,000 is a generous offer, but 6 weeks later, no one has been paid.
I called twice and left messages on her phone. She didn't respond to those, and then I called her again a week or 2 later, and she wouldn't speak to me.
Ian then arranged another phone call.
Hello?
Hello, Marilyn.
Yes.
This is Ian here.
So what was Marilyn Hudson telling students waiting for a refund?
Well, I'm just wondering when I can expect any money from you.
I don't think you should expect anything from me, Ian. Not after your... I think you should look at yourself and think about what you expect from yourself and think about what you've done to other people.
Then she hung up. Ian Gall phoned back, and Marilyn Hudson was clearly annoyed he'd taken the matter to the Disputes Tribunal.
Well, what sort of choice do I have when you won't even speak to me?
You and your friends, you know, I mean, I'll tell you what, in the end, the good thing about it is that you are the only ones that are going to lose, and that is one thing that keeps me going.
After telling Ian she'd report him to the police for harassment if he phoned again, the call ended. To be fair, Ian Gall is the only student who's complaining of being treated rudely. We spoke to all the students. One supports Marilyn Hudson, another believes the school is essential for the film industry, but the rest believe change is needed. They feel they're being fobbed off, they feel there's been a lack of communication.
A bit frustrated, not being able to find out what's going on, not being told, you know, what's happening with the course, the fees, the refund.
So you haven't heard when you're going to get a refund?
No.
Do you think you're going to get your money?
To be honest, I don't think so.
All right, bye. Chris Hinchy also wants a refund, but he's not sure where he stands. He had to stop the course last year when he got glandular fever. What options then have you been given?
None, basically. No options.
Chris Hinchy, like the others, took out a $7,500 student loan to help pay for the course. What are you going to do if you don't get a refund of any description? How will you pay the loan back then?
I don't know.
Are you concerned about that?
Yes. Very concerned.
Grant Lyons is one of 5 students who want to complete the course. They were told in February the school would be run by a charitable trust and would open in May. No mention yet of who the trustees will be or where the school will be situated.
In my decision to go to the school, it's a gamble, and because of the lack of information.
Some students have received a letter from Marilyn Hudson in the last week, criticising both Holmes and the students who've gone public.
It answers absolutely nothing.
It doesn't tell you about a refund, it doesn't tell you about the new school.
No, it doesn't say anything like that. It just says, we have got your letter and we're trying to rectify things as best we can.
Long before these problems, a group of film industry people wanted the school to move to Wellington. They still do. The trustees will probably be chosen this week, and they will decide Marilyn Hudson's role. The school will probably have the same name, but it will be run differently. As one person put it, the move will revitalise the school, take the best and get rid of the worst. Has she indicated that the style of running the school will change?
I would think that would have to be done.
They're also hoping for some debts to be settled.
The New Zealand Film and Television School took in, I think, 30 students last year, and we all paid $10,000 each, which is $300,000. So I don't think it's unreasonable for the school to come up with the money that was owed to a handful of students.
Well, Marilyn Hudson herself did not want to be interviewed on this programme. She said she did not want to participate in anything so disgusting. But the next day, she faxed us and she says, students who remain clients have been kept fully informed of all developments. In January, there's a 3-hour meeting with students, then 2 letters, and they can always get it by phone, as we've seen. Marilyn Hudson confirms the school is planning to relocate in Wellington. She hopes to find solutions to the school's problems there. She says the school has set up a complaints procedure which will protect students, the school and its employees. We also got another fax from the film industry people helping to re-establish the school in Wellington. Robin Lang, Chris Hampson and Jane Gilbert claim the Holmes programme persist in attempting to create some form of scandal around the New Zealand Film and Television School, seemingly in an attempt to bring it to its knees. I don't think so. They explained how much effort was being put into getting a new school established and said our story was exacerbating an already difficult situation. Next on the programme,